now we're going to hear from Gosha Dusak, who will share with us the Taygetan Palladian viewpoint about walk-ins. So I want to tell you just a little bit about her before I bring her up. Gosha was born in Poland in 1977, and at the age of 22, she left her home country in pursuit of a new life. She lived in the United States, Australia, Costa Rica, Spain, and currently in Finland. She graduated from Queensland University with a degree of comprehensive religion in 2005. She's the owner and the producer of the YouTube channel Cosmic Agency. And if you have not visited her channel, please do yourself a favor and do so. It is phenomenal. The information that she shares is really out of this world. And she shares this information that she's receiving from the Taygetan Palladians, who she has been communicating with since about, I think it was 2017, almost on a daily basis. And so I am very honored and pleased to bring up Gosha Dusak. Hi, Gosha. Just need to come off mute.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Let me just do very fast sound check, because
Absolutely.
I have my microphone here for the first time, like very close to me. So can you hear me well?
Yes, absolutely perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting that actually it blurs out the microphone. The microphone is here, as you see. It disappears. Kind of cool. Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hello to everybody watching. Also, I want to comment on the last speaker. That was her first time. I was actually listening, preparing. That was her first time, and it was amazing. I was just like, what? Where is she getting all this? And she was very eloquent and expressing difficult metaphysical concepts in a way that was comprehensive. So yeah, yeah, very good. My speech, my presentation will be a bit different in a sense that I don't feel drawing a lot of this information really from my own memory as a walking, because as I will explain, I am a technological walking. I will explain what that is. I am a walking as well, technologically walking, but I do not have much memory about that. Neither do I have a lot of access to information that I am aware of. Maybe I'm downgrading myself here, but that's how I feel. I feel more that I'm sharing the information that is coming from the team of Taygetan Palladians, and beyond that, I'm referring to SWARUUs, who are sharing this information with us since 2017. So this is not directly coming from me. It's not channeled. This information I do not just interpret from the field. I would love to do that as well somehow. Like, for example, I would like to ask the previous speaker, she was talking about accessing the grid and asking for the coordinates. But how do you know what's the number? Like, how do you know what the coordinate is? Maybe I missed that. I don't know. I would love to ask her that.
Well, she has stepped away, but I will connect the two of you through an email.
Okay, thank you very much. For now, all my information is coming from the communication that we receive with the Taygetan Palladian crew who are in the orbit of the Earth. I'm not going to be going through this whole introduction again, how this started, because I am assuming most of you speakers or most of you viewers already know more or less. But just in a few sentences, in 2017, we started this written communication with them. And since that time, I have been sharing everything, our chats, all this information in my YouTube channel, Cosmic Agency, and the website where you can see all the transcripts, www.swaruu.org. I try to put that in my name. And since this is very important, since December last year, it's not just me who is sharing this in English, but actually one of them themselves, called Mari SWARUU, started to work on her own channel from the ship itself. I know it sounds unbelievable, but they are physical people with, fingers and ability to type and the desire to communicate with people. So she started to make her own videos. Her channel is called SWARUU Oficial. It's also in my name, I think. I'm not sure what you can see. Yeah, it's there, SWARUU Oficial. I put it there. And Mari SWARUU actually this week made 2 videos on walkings. She started this walking series. It's on her channel. Go directly there. So you'll see what the extraterrestrial person directly says about this subject. She's not finished. There's going to be more parts to it. So you have to jump to her channel if you are interested in a walking subject. She will continue talking about this. So a lot of my information now in this presentation will be based on her information on the past 2 videos, but not only, also based on the previous information from the past years, information from Anneka, from Yaski, from SWARUU herself, SWARUU 9. If you know the story, you understand who I'm talking about. So let's start right away. Now, the order of my presentation will be as follows. What are walkings? Everybody knows, but let's just put some kind of definition again on the term. Then I will describe natural walkings, as most souls come in naturally through the source. But there is also something called immersion technology, and you can actually walk in through that technology. This is how I walked in. I will explain this a little bit more. So natural walkings, technological walkings, regressive takeovers, so-called possessions. Then I will explain a little bit more about the signs of the walking. How can you identify yourself as a walking if you are asking yourself if you could be? And then at the end, I'm going to mention a few points that Mari SWARUU brought up in her recent video that she just published, I think, a few days ago. There's just a very, very interesting point that she brought up there. I want to leave that for the end. Okay, so let's start with the definition, very basic definition. What is a walking? Well, a walking soul is a soul that enters a living body, a person. He walks into the living entity. As I said, it can be done naturally or technologically. Okay, first let's go over the let's first go over the natural way that the walkings do this. Again, there are 2 modalities here. First modality, one soul walks in and another soul walks out. Modality number 2, a soul walks in, period. No one is there to walk out. And how does this happen? Because I will explain, because the walking soul can actually occupy the so-called background person. So there was nobody there to begin with. Okay, so let's first start with the natural type of a walking, when one soul walks in, another one walks out. Mari describes the walking this way, and this is taken from her video. The basic description of a walking is a soul who was in higher existential realms or in the afterlife, and who then enters a living body a long time after it was born, usually in adulthood, most often replacing the original soul who willingly goes back to the afterlife. So that's how she describes more or less generically the walking soul. She explains, well, all of them explain that Usually this happens because of the prenatal agreements. So somewhere in the space between lives, in the afterlife, these two souls meet, they have an arrangement, and they decide to do that. And usually it happens later in a person's life. They actually make a distinction between a walking and a crawl in. The crawl in would be a soul that enters at birth, somewhere around that time. And then walking, you are walking into the body that is already operational. It's kind of like buying a used car that is still good, and you can still, put it to a good use, but the old owner doesn't want to drive it anymore, so you just decide to purchase it in a way. And there are many reasons why the old soul could want to retire. Maybe that I can go into that separately, but generally the old soul, is tired, doesn't want to be there anymore for whatever reason agreed upon in the afterlife, and the new soul is ready to do something and doesn't want to go through the whole experience of being a baby, growing up, learning things. It just wants to walk into the identity already formed and do specific job, because that's basically what it came to do something, something precise already. Now, I was asking them if it's possible to walk out without any prenatal agreement. Like if I'm tired of life, like how many people are very tired and they just want to leave. We talked about this in the Starseed presentation, how many people are just tired and want to leave Earth. Well, what if one of them were like, I want to walk out. How about maybe someone can walk in my place so my family doesn't have to suffer, and, I can just go. I'm tired. Well, they told us that it's hard to do it this way if it was not based on some sort of prenatal agreements, because from the physical side here of the incarnated self, it's hard to maybe contact that realm where the souls operate, make decisions. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it's hard. It's hard. And also it could be dangerous because we don't know who might respond. So be careful about that, like asking for that right now, because especially if your frequency is low, if you are asking for that from the state of a lower frequency, depression and deep sadness, because then you are becoming a match to the lower astral entity, and they might respond to your call and come in and occupy your body, and then it's not going to be nice. Your body then will be used for not such nice things after that. So that's basically what they told us. Okay, the next point is that it's very important for the body here to be compatible in frequency with the new soul, because each biological body, each individual cell in the body holds a unique vibration. And as they told us, that vibration is the result of the average frequency and vibration of the soul that inhabits it, which in turn is the result of the overall vibration of its thoughts and emotions. No two people, no two bodies have the same exact vibration. It's like a unique energetical address in the energy field that we are immersed in. So when the walking soul comes in, it has to be matching, compatible in frequency in that energetic address with the body. And many times it happens that it's not completely compatible. So this is when the subject of many abductions come in, because many abductions are actually positive, and they are done in order to have the procedure done on the person, on the body, to improve that compatibility. And they explained to us that this is done with energy frequency specific to that body. So in other words, the DNA of the person on Earth is accommodated enough for the incoming soul using frequency imposition with a method similar to the medical pods. And they explained to us this procedure exactly. So you can see this more in our channel. And this is done a lot of times through the little positive grays called gardeners. That's how they refer to them. So many times you can be, the body of the person before the walking is abducted to tune in that body to the incoming frequency of the walking soul. Sometimes mothers are abducted, especially if it's a walking that comes in early in life as a crawl-in. So many times mothers are abducted as well, sometimes even fathers. So that's what happens here. Now, okay, next point is that, as I said, the first modality, natural walking, is that the soul comes in, walks in, another walks out. But now there is another modality, number 2, where the soul walks into the empty person, organic portal. They are so-called unreal people. They are unreal people. Their body still needs to be adjusted because that's another topic. They are unreal, but they still have bodies, complicated. And that point is when they become real. So actually it can happen that you might have someone in your life who is like a matrix person, and suddenly it seems like they woke up. Well, because maybe there was a soul that walked into that body and animated and transformed that person, occupied that vehicle because it was available. So that happens as well. And a lot of positive races do this. However, there is a trap here as well, because there are a lot of negative and regressive races that do that as well. So a lot of astral entities who are in a non-physical form, they do come in and they walk into the organic portals, and they are basically like embodied demons, just walking demons in the human physical form. And they do that, and it's a separate story. And Mari SWARUU also talked a lot about that, about those astral entities. And also regressive races who are not astral, but just physical regressive races also have the technology to do this. I will maybe mention this a bit more in the technological part, when they use organic portals and they operate through those people. And they have those people do things that are not positive, so to speak. They are basically, those people are just like their puppets. And it happens a lot to politicians and to many important people. So it's basically regressive races operating, walking in those people. Now, the difference between this kind of walking and the astral possession walking is that these are basically hostile takeovers. They are negative. They are invasive. And the walking is a consented soul swap. It's a cooperation, because sometimes maybe someone might feel this is invasive, like the new soul is kicking out the previous soul. It doesn't work like that. It's always with the consent, and it's just a body switch. It's not just a soul switch, but it's very positive, and it benefits both, versus that hostile, invasive takeover, the possession, because that is also a form of a walking, but it's negative. Okay, so now that I went through the natural walkings, this is where it gets kind of really technical, because there is a technological type of a walking, and actually it's very common. They told us in the last 20 years that the walkings through the immersion technology has increased a lot. It has been always used. It's an ancient technology, but it has increased a lot. In general, the starseeds walking in to the Earth, that increased, but also coming in through the immersion technology, that increased too. I will tell you later why they choose that over natural walking in. So, but what is the immersion technology? Let me just go through it fast. because we have a very detailed video, 3 parts on, or maybe 4, I don't remember, on the immersion technology. I mean, it's super technical. It was published a few years ago. And if you go to the website that I have that in my name, just type immersions in a transcript search, because all the videos have their transcripts. You can read this. I was actually reading this today because I was preparing for this presentation. I was taking notes, and I was like mind blown all over again with the amount of information, because many times what happens with this information, I publish it and then I maybe forget a lot of it. So I have to go through it again. It was really detailed. So the immersion technology is basically a type of technology that has virtually unlimited uses. It can be for many different uses, and I will not go into that because there'll be a talk on immersions. But these immersion pods used to walk into the human avatar on Earth are hibernation pods. It's basically when the consciousness of that original body is diverted to the avatar on Earth. Now, I prepared some sentences from that transcript because I'm unable to explain it myself technically. This is why, you know, this is why this is so great that this is the written communication, because if I was just trying to channel this, I don't think I would be able to find terms and words, because my brain is not very technically wired. So this way we can give word to word explanation technically how it works. So this is what they said. The immersion pod detects brain waves and electrochemical magnetic dynamics and retransmits them through muon gravity transmission technology to another brain that is ready to receive the signal. So this is just one sentence out of like 100 that are highly technical. So the person goes into this hibernational capsule and goes to sleep. Basically, that capsule keeps you in stasis. There is a liquid there that you need to breathe. Yes, you have to take it into yourself. It's not very pleasant, they told us, but you can breathe it later on. And it provides nutrients and oxygen to the body while it sleeps. Okay, and this is what they also said here. At the same time as this happens, as your body goes into the hibernation, the pod puts the original body in stasis or suspended animation and isolates with precise stimuli at points in the brain the information coming from its senses. In other words, the original body only remains as a container for an original brain that connects with the source and diverts the electrochemical magnetic sensor information to another prepared body, where the life experience of that body is transmitted to the original, and from there to the source. It sounds like a lot of deviation, they say, but it is very direct. The signal is not lost. The connection with the pod is very strong. So this is what the pod does. This is how the person walks in the same way. Walks into the real person whose soul walks out. Also, agreement was made in the afterlife somewhere, or they walk into the NPC. So into the NPC character matrix person. However, even though this is done technologically, they still have to have that body adaptation, tuning in. They have to adapt the body frequency of where they are walking in, tune it in. Because as I said, we all have a personal frequency, not one, there's no two people with the same frequency address, energetic address, and it has to be artificially made compatible with that of another body, with your original body, sometimes even very far away. Your original body there could be on another planet, sleeping in a pod, and you are walking into the avatar on Earth, just like in the movie Avatar, but all done with the pod. And also gardeners, those little positive grays, from what I understand, they also help with that. In this case, because it's done technologically, and the person walks into the later years, the mother doesn't really need to be adapted, from what I understand. It's just the body of the avatar that is being prepared. And it's done with the pod and by the gardeners. It's explained in the transcript. Now, this is the next sentence here. The immersion machine works exactly like a voltage converter so that the frequencies of the non-human person are matched with those of the human body. Because they explain, soul can only be compatible with inhabiting a body that is tailored to it and that has the correct frequency receivers encoded into its DNA, which acts like a frequency key. Now, advanced star races can isolate the precise frequency of a soul and of any biological body, and they can force one soul into an force, but that's some negative. It's with the agreement. They can force one soul into an incompatible body using the immersion pod as an adapter. Okay, let me just read this too. In this case, there is no need for any concordance in terms of the frequencies of the mother and the father. In the case of immersions, technological immersions, it has nothing to do with whether or not they have the same frequency with the family, because the energy converter does the tuning job. So in this case, like I said already, there's no need to adapt the mother, the father, the converter does that tuning job. Another example they use is like if you up there outside Earth have a frequency of 54 hertz, for example, very general example, 54. And you're looking for another one with the same frequency, so you need to tune in there. It will be like you turn off one radio device and you turn on another device in another place. So you see what I mean? You go, I'm turning to the station in my room, I turn it off, but I have to tune in the next device in another room to receive the same signal. So that's what they do. That's what this pod does. And they also explain to us that actually it's the same as with the spaceship using frequency star maps in hyperspace, when time and distance doesn't matter. When the starships jump to another location in time or in space through the hyperspace, and we have this explained also in the videos, they use those frequency star maps. It doesn't move anywhere. It just tunes in into another frequency numerical value, and it just manifests there. So it's the same here with the consciousness, which is kind of like a starship. For them, technology of a starship and technology of a consciousness is very connected, and without one, you cannot understand the other. They are both related. So here, the same. Just like the starship jumps through the ether, through the etheric field, manifests anywhere through the frequency management. Here, the same. The person, the consciousness jumps through that frequency tuning and management to another avatar, to another location. It just appears there. This is how they walk in. It's also a type of a walk-in, very, very frequent. I remember that some time ago, Dor Kalel, who is one of the Taigetan men on the ship, a pilot, told us that it's a very important subject to share with the people, because the starseeds probably want to know how they walk in, because this is a very, 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 very common way that a lot of ET races use to come in. So as they explain here, there are no distances, only energetic localization in a field that is ether. So a concordant signal passed through hyperspace with transmission technology by muons can pass the signal from the computer of the immersion pod in Taygeta to any place in the universe equally. So you can be in Taygeta and you can go into these pods and you can jump literally into any space, in any place in the universe. It doesn't have to be walking into Earth. It could be into any location. Actually, that's why I began this part of the presentation about the technological pods with the statement that it's used for a variety of things. Because, for example, they use it, they told us, fun fact, they use it to be able to work in environments on planets where the place and the environment, for example, is too hostile to be there with their original body. So they use this immersion program, which is another type of walking. They walk into another avatar of themselves, and they operate on another planet where the environment is hostile, and they do take scientific samples, or they analyze, explore, whatever, not with their original body. Very, very interesting. Now, they told me, as I told you, that I am a walking too. I'm saying they told me because I do not have that knowledge myself. I don't have the memory of any event that happened, or I have very vague memories. I would say that not no memories, but very, very few and very vague. But they told me that I am in one of these immersion pods. And they have about 2,000, or in the beginning when this program began, they had about 2,000 men who went into this immersion program, and 2,000 women and 500 men. And like I said, it doesn't matter where your original body is and where you want to jump into, walk into. In my case, my pod was somewhere in the orbit before on the ship, but then they moved it, and now the immersion pods are back in Taygeta. But as you see, the difference doesn't matter, and the signal is still strong. Okay, and another fun fact, and this is also something that applies to me. They told me after a few years of communication with them, I got it out of them, because I say I got it out of them because they don't like to give this personal information too much, because they find it invasive. They do like the person to kind of reach their own conclusions about themselves, go inside and connect, and not just have this information handed to them. But I always insist, and I give me more, tell me more. So they actually told me, and it's possible that immersion pods can operate more than one avatar on Earth. So you can actually walk in, and I'm sure this can be done naturally through the source as well. Your soul can operate more than just one person on Earth at a specific time. So actually, my immersion pod supposedly operates 2 programs. So I have another person. I'm not going to reveal too many details, but they told me it's a girl, and she's in Norway. And I have no knowledge of that, like consciously, but basically it's possible. It's not very common, but it's possible to operate more than one walk-in immersion program at the same time. For whatever reason, I have my idea about the reason why I decide to do that, but that's another story. Okay, now, so going back to the point about the regressive races, this is also unfortunately used by the regressive races for invasive takeovers for negative purposes, because the negatives also have this technology. And this is how what they refer to as body snatch. They are snatching bodies, and they use them for negative purposes. And sometimes they can body snatch, and then they can release that person, and that person they did something bad, but that person may not have memory of that. That happens. There are cases like that. Well, that's probably what happened. And they were used in that body snatch procedure. They have the technology. But let's not focus on that. But I did want to mention that it's also happening. They told us that this immersion walking modality is most common, actually, entry mode. Hundreds of thousands of extraterrestrials are in immersions right now. And all these different races have different technology, slightly different, but they are based on the same principles. Why that technology was developed, that's another story. And I would have to explain this in a separate seminar on immersions, because yeah, there's a story why it was developed. but it's ancient. It was developed very, very, very long time ago using the slicing of the MedPod technology and holographic simulation for entertainment technology. It was like put together. Okay. Okay, let's continue to the next point. When you both walk in naturally or technologically, you inherit the life of that person you are walking in. You become that person. It could be said you implant that person into yourself. You are interpreting their memory. You can access that memory. You are accessing that memory, and because and why you're accessing that memory? Because you receive it from the etheric field where those memories really are, and you receive it because the DNA of that person you are walking in has that frequency, and the DNA is memory. So as you walk into that DNA, you are interpreting the memory through the DNA that is stored in the etheric field, but still through the DNA of that person. You may interpret those memories in a new, more expanded way. And that's another story. And that's another indication you could be walking, because you might have memories, but suddenly you're seeing them in a different way. Maybe before you thought this was something negative that happened to you in the past, but now you are like interpreting it in a different light. Because in general, the walking soul is more advanced, so to speak, strong and confident in being able to handle it. This is a very important point. If you feel you are a walking soul, believe you are very strong and you knew what you were getting into and you were very confident in yourself. This was done fully consciously. Another point on the side I want to mention. How much time do I have? I still have time, I think. Okay. Okay, another point I want to mention, when I said that when you walk into that person, you inherit that person, it's sort of like you are implanting into yourself that person, that idea of implanting a memory, it's actually nothing so unusual. And they actually explain to us in a separate topic how souls go around implanting things all the time, individually and collectively, for the context. For example, you are going into the Arcturian life and you want to implant yourself some Arcturian context. So you do implant certain concepts and general field through which you'll be operating as an Arcturian. We have a separate video about this called Etheric Memory Implants. So this is a very interesting topic in itself, how this happens. Okay, another point. Very important to understand that both walking experience naturally from the source or technologically are both real as any other life experience. It doesn't make it any less real, because some people think, oh, you are coming in through technology, you are artificially sending the signal. It doesn't matter. They told us that the experience is the same, whether it's done technologically or whether it's done through the technology of the mind itself, which in itself is a sort of a technology. If you look at it this way, metaphysical technology, it doesn't matter. It's simply that if you walk in through the immersion, it guarantees your return. So in other words, when you die here, you wake up in the pod. And that's why, among other reasons, many races choose this mode of walking in order to guarantee their return. Because if you come in here through the source, through the astral realm, and then you get lost in the matrix ideas, who knows what stories you will pick up on the way with baggage and traumas. You will be floating somewhere, who knows where. But they want to come back. Like, I'm an Arcturian. I want to walk in and I want to see what it's like to be a human. Fine, I want to do something there. But I want to make sure I come back to home, to my house. You know, I have my life here. So that's one of the reasons why they do it. And also it's generally more controlled. So in other words, before you get immersed, you can kind of choose where and when, what family, even though from the astral, probably you do that as well, but it feels like it's more vague. And here they can like consciously, okay, I'm going to choose this family. I'm tuning in that body. I'm choosing that avatar. So they feel from their perspective that it's more controlled. Okay, moving on to the next point. signs that you might be walking. How do you identify? Right? Because there's just so many walking souls on earth, but how do I know I am one of them? Well, on earth, they told us there's no specific, like, technological or specific way to detect for sure. But there are some indications, symptoms, so to speak. So I'll just talk about these a little bit. Well, in both cases, whether you come naturally or technologically, sometimes, usually, I think, there is no memory. However, as we saw with the previous speaker, she had the memory of that. So that's amazing, and I'm a bit jealous of that myself, because I have no memory of my walking. And apparently, they told me I just did this. I went into the immersion only in 2017, just before starting this experience with them, just to do this, actually, basically. But I have no memory. So there is no memory usually, but like they said, the memory wipe is not complete, leaving the person with an inner feeling that something is not right, that they are not the person they are on earth, that they are somewhere else, that they are someone else somewhere else. And this was actually one of my feelings that I had before I found out that I was in the immersion. I remember that I was looking at myself and my own body, and I felt I wasn't really that person. I feel like I am right now disguised to myself, that I am so deeply in disguise that I'm even the disguise to myself. Like I put on a suit, and then I switched off the memory of why I put that suit and what is this? But I always felt that I am not this. And I'm not just referring to the body. I just mean this identity, like I was someone else and I put on this identity. This also explains the immersions. Well, walkings as well, yes. If you walk into the body in a later life, you feel like you are interpreting that identity through some kind of a program. I felt that when I used to go to Poland, visit my family. I always felt like I remember this place. I remember these people. I remember the feelings, but it's like it was overlaid upon me. And I was like interpreting that memory, but it wasn't fully mine. But I was like recognizing it. It was like fused with me, but it wasn't me. It was a very, very strange feeling. And I felt that long before I found out that I was in this immersion. Okay. Another symptom is that they told us this happens very often through dramatic events and accidents, near-death experiences. This is very common. This is when this soul swap occurs, or through some deep transformations, like when you are going through depression, like dark night of the soul. I think it was mentioned before in one of the speakers. And this is when that soul swap happens. And many times you experience very, very abrupt change in personality and interests in ideas, sudden awakening. Like, what is a soul? They told us that the soul is basically a set of ideas and that you have attachment to within the greater mind of the source. You were just a set of ideas within the larger mind. So one set of ideas is being replaced by another set of ideas. So you change interest, you change personality and ideas, concepts, because literally you have a different soul within you with different set of ideas. So this is one of the indications that you could be a walking. For example, Matthias, who is my partner, my boyfriend, we suspect that he's a walking because he was always playing video games and loving his birds. He had these birds, parakeets, for like 12 years, and they were his only friends. That's it. He didn't have many friends, no girlfriend, just these birds. Suddenly he met me. He started to get into this material that we share. And suddenly it was like changing one bodysuit for another. He stopped playing the video games. He lost complete interest. And more importantly, strangely, he gave away his birds. Like he felt these are, I cannot have them anymore. I need to give them away. Like they are not mine. Like it's time for me to move on from that. And he had them for 12 years. So that's also an indication of a very abrupt change of ideas and wants. However, how Mari explained in her channel this week, it's important to note that not all the transformations means a walking, that sometimes it's natural psychological evolution, okay? That many times in our spiritual circles, we also use this label walking as a coping mechanism, like, okay, this explains my situation. But she explained that, yes, it happens, those walkings, but also sometimes it's a natural psychological evolution of a person. You grow older, you transcend certain ideas. So just keep that in mind, okay? That it could be, you could still be the same soul, simply transformed and evolved. Or like someone mentioned in the previous presentation, they were talking about the aspects, maybe like another aspect of your soul. It's the same soul, but it's like another aspect of your soul came in. There was no specific swap. Just trying to understand this myself. Okay. However, so I said dramatic events, abrupt change of ideas. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be this way either. Because, for example, in my case, I had nothing like that happen. I had no dramatic event, nothing sudden. It was very gradual. I was always interested in these topics. I was always interested in, and I didn't change any ideas. Now, I changed one idea. I will mention it. I think it's a bit silly. I know, superficial, but I have no other reference. I'm telling you, there is no other changes in me, I feel, in ideas. The only idea that I changed, I'm preparing, which is going to be silly, superficial, is I changed my preference in men. Okay, I used to love black hair. Since this moment, since 2017, I totally switched the preference and I started liking blondes. Like this was my preference suddenly, like blondes with beards, exactly how Taigetans are. Like what is this? I was never drawn to Scandinavia, for example. It was boring to me. I'm from Poland, so Scandinavia is like very, very close. It was like nothing to me, nothing exotic. And suddenly, around 2017, I became obsessed with the Scandinavian cultures. And I went to travel to Finland, to Sweden, to Norway. I visited all these countries. I don't know. I don't know if this is the indication or what, but this was the only change that I can notice in me that was so different. So my point with this is, even if you don't have any dramatic changes, it doesn't mean you are not a walking. It could be something gradual. But the one indication that I had, and this, I'm going to mention this. Look at this. This is very interesting when I read this. This is actually the book that I wrote. I never talk about this because it's not important. I wrote this back in 2011, and it's based on my own diary. It's not a novel. It's not fiction. It's real. It's based on my own diary. It's called Odyssey of an Airhead. Well, doesn't matter. In the last page, this is what I wrote. This is from my diary. And I wrote this back in 2017. I'm just going to read a few sentences because this is an indication that maybe I was ready for the walkout. I say this. I'm reading from here. I think I'm so ready to be beamed soon. I know how that sounds. And I know that the extraterrestrials probably won't beam me up. However, I have to use this expression as it's exactly how I feel recently. I think I'm ready to be beamed out. I am ready to be unplugged. This is in 2007. I wrote this. I am ready to be unplugged. I am ready to be pulled out of here into a state of being beyond. I am tired of human affairs and I've had enough of what this world is about. I feel weary of having to look at cars, trees, buildings, and hearing sounds. My consciousness is exhausted and it wants out. I feel I am done. I feel as though I exhausted the potential of experiencing this third-dimensional planet reality, and I am about to get beamed out of here to where I truly belong. So I'm reading this now like, okay, I have no memory of any specific walking moment, but I wrote this. I was like ready to go somewhere, and I was calling out, I'm ready. I want to go. So I think this could be an indication that this swap did happen. Yes. I have one more point to go through. Do I have time? Yes, I think so.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Because this point that I want to go through is something that Mari mentioned in her last video about walkings. And it's something that I never thought about. And actually, it explains a lot of things. So she says this, and you have to go to the SWARUU official to see this video in full. She says this, that, as we already talked about this, body can only be inhabited or taken over by a soul that has a frequency compatibility. That can be adjusted. Okay, yes, we talked about this technologically, the gardeners come and adjust it, but there is another reason why there is that compatibility. The walking is actually a higher, future, more evolved version of the same soul. It's you, it's the same person, but a different point of a spiritual path. So it's not like a totally different soul that comes in, but it's actually you from a more evolved point in your soul progression. So from one point of view, here you are on earth, you are you, and that coming in soul feels like a different person. But remember, from another perspective, you are in the source, and from there, you can access any point in the universe your larger soul can do and can manage multiple use at the same time. So from this level, it can be viewed like there are two people, but actually they are one. I never thought about it this way, that actually, because I thought, okay, I'm coming in through the immersion or whatever, I'm inheriting Gosha's memories, like it's another person, like I'm kind of like against that. Like, why do I have to absorb her traumas, her psychological ideas, her concepts, her visions? Like, it's not me. Why do I have to integrate that into myself? Because unfortunately, or fortunately, this is what you have to do when you walk in. You're becoming that person. But why are you coming into that person in the first place? Because it is you from another point in a non-linear sequence. You are that coming in soul. It's just you, the more evolved version of yourself. It could be your future self. You're coming from the future of yourself somewhere, because from where you are coming in, from that space between lives, there is no linearity, there's no sequence, there is no order the way we view it. So that's why actually many times when the walkings come in, their memories of the past in this life seem very distant, like it's another lifetime. I think it's in Matthias' case is this way too. When I ask him about his past, like about his childhood, he doesn't remember. It's like it's very distant. And why? Because it was literally your previous incarnation, past life. Yeah, you walked into this person. So it seems like it's you, a different soul, but in a way you are walking into the previous version of yourself, somewhere in a sequence of your soul journey. So it is very interesting. And she told us that the soul can return for a personal reason, that more advanced aspect version of yourself can return for a personal reason, or to fulfill more collective task. And it chooses itself. It's less evolved version. Perhaps a more beat up version and depressed, it wants to let it rest, go to the astral, renew itself, and it comes in with new perspectives that it gains somewhere in higher realms. So they switch positions. For me, this is kind of new information, because I always felt that, yeah, okay, there has to be compatibility in the frequency, but they are two different people. They are swapping, two different, okay, maybe part of the same soul family on some level, but not to the point of actually that being the same person, just a future, a more evolved version. So it is all very, very interesting. Another point on the side here, that from what I understand, if you use the immersion, though, you can that soul can walk into anybody, because you can artificially tune in. So in other words, you don't have to walk into your version of yourself, lower past version of yourself. You can walk into anybody, from what I understand, because you are walking through the technology. So you can adjust any avatar. Of course, the more compatibility, better, but it can still be adjusted technologically. So this was mentioned in Mari videos. In Mari video this week, go to her channel because she explains this more deeply in her own words, written from the ship by the extraterrestrial person herself, and she's not done. So if you want to continue with the series that she started this week, go to her channel because she only made 2 videos, and now she's going to make another one. So I don't know what she will speak about because we don't really know what she will talk about next. So I'm interested to know that as well. So I basically went through all my notes. This is very general. What I explained, any of these points and threads can be deepened, of course, and go to my website if you want to deepen on immersions, type in walkings, and all the transcripts will come up as well. And you must go to SWARUU Oficial, okay? Because it doesn't have any human interpretation. You see here in my channel, even though I say I presented directly, yes, but it's still like I am making the video, I'm editing what goes where sometimes, and she does it herself, okay? So it's awesome. Ready for questions?
Okay,
Thank you.
Great. That was a wonderful presentation, full of excitement. That was awesome. So a couple things for people who may have just joined us. What Gosha is talking about is she is in almost daily written contact with the Taigetans through her computer. They have found a way that they are, I'm not going to say hacking, but for a lack of better terms, they're tapping into the internet system and they're conversing back and forth. Is that correct?
No, it's not hacking. It's not that magical and mysterious and strange. They're not hacking because sometimes people ask me, oh, they just appear on the screen and you start. No, they don't hack. They are people and they are using digital computers because that's what they have to use in order to connect to ours. They have their holographic
through the internet, right? So they're connecting in.
Yeah, through the internet, through the normal software, like, in the past we had MSN, Hotmail or something, chatting back and forth. And sometimes we can also put the audio, like I can speak through the audio and they can hear us. And yeah, there's no specific, weird magic about it. It's just a normal internet connection.
Great. And so there was a question that came to me. They said, I love your enthusiasm. Can you please explain more about the medbed and entertainment technology?
Okay. Well, they have on board the immersion technology that is for entertainment, which is, they are basically like this high-tech virtual reality where they can go and they use these simulations. It's basically like being there. So if you want to go be on a beach somewhere, you can create that, recreate that, and it's basically like being there. Everything is there, all the sensory experiences. You can actually create something strange. So if you want to put there, flying robots, well, then you have flying robots. You can design it your own way. However, they don't like it too much because they kind of like got bored with this. They say it feels fake to them too much, so they don't use it anymore. And these and like I said, this has endless uses. Like, for example, they want to have a holographic meeting with someone, so they use this immersion technology to meet with a representative of another race, where, for example, they cannot share the space because of the organic differences, like different oxygen requirements or something like that. So they use this technology to connect with their families back in home. And medbeds, that's another technology, but it's but they used the medbed technology and this holographic simulation technology to create this immersion technology to enter Earth. We have a variety of videos on medbeds too, and how they work. So you have to go to the website.
Okay. One of the things that was shared with me by my collective when I first came in and started working with them, and I was inquiring about walk-ins once I learned I was one, is that walk-ins come to be in service of people, and that they come to either fulfill something that they didn't get to do, but now they have this opportunity that they can move a mission to a much higher plane. They always take on the karma of the other person and help clear up all of the cellular memories and debris. And then I started asking them about possession. And they said that possession typically occurs when a soul is, very weakened, or the body is very weakened, and the negative entity is much stronger and moves in and takes the body over. And so I was just wondering if you could explain the difference. And this is a question from Sherry. Can you elaborate and clarify the difference between walk-ins and backdrop people theory, possessions, passengers, hitchhikers, and attachments?
Oh, I don't know much about the hitchhikers. However, I do understand the idea. I will have to ask them more about that. Well, it's very simple. Walkings and possessions. The walking, like I said, it's a mutual consent. It's a soul swap where both are cooperating in benefit for each other. It's that. It's a mutual agreement. But the possession, there's no agreement here, because the demonic astral entity doesn't operate that way. It goes and it does what it wants in a very invasive, chaotic and arrogant way. And it takes advantage of the people when they are in the lower states. So that's why I was talking about protecting yourself and keeping high frequency in the last video about starseeds. I understand that we all get sad and all that. It's okay, but just try not to stay there for too long, because you become a match. You become a portal to those lower entities who can start to manipulate you. They will start with just manipulation. They will whisper thoughts and ideas and inject you with feelings, and you will interpret them as yours. It will not be a full possession yet, but they can go on. If your frequency goes on and deeper and down, it transform into the full possession. And they can also use the organic portals. There are nothing inside, so they are perfect for them to fulfill whatever purpose. They are really walking human demons in human flesh. But there was no one there to start with, so there was no agreement. They just somehow did that. And the regressive races do that with the technology as well. The hitchhikers, I'm really not sure. I understand more or less where this is going, but I don't have much information about it right now.
Okay, great. I remember when I was studying QHHT, Dolores Cannon always talked about the backdrop people.
Yes.
So that was very interesting. Okay, Paulo says, hi, Gosha. During immersion, the soul is practically operating through two bodies. The one is in the immersion and the body that it is used for the walk-in. Do you think that the veil of forgetfulness is much stronger in a person who walks in by immersion than in the natural way?
I would say that the soul does not operate anymore through that body in the immersion. The body basically is like a container in that moment for all the vitals to be sustained there. But the soul is converted into the avatar. It's for you. Like in my case, I am full me from that place. I'm here now operating through this Gosha body, but my body is there. My soul is not maintaining that body. Is not attending to its body. It's maintained technologically. Maybe it could be argued that there is still some soul attendance to that original body. I am not sure exactly. They don't even know, I think, fully, because this is soul operations from another level. But the veil of forgetfulness, I think it doesn't matter if you are coming through the immersion or through the natural walking state. It all depends on what you're on a soul level you decide for yourself, and what settings you put in your pod, because there are also memory settings, they say, like a dial, and you can decide there how much you want to remember. But most importantly, it's on the soul level. So you can override that from what I believe, because many times I ask them, can you go to my pod and adjust the settings? Like, I want to remember more. And they said, no one can control that but you. And second of all, they don't have the full access to the pod. It's like kind of locked in, because the person who goes in there, they kind of lock it in, so no one can access and change the settings. That was their decision. So it can be done on a soul level. I think the veil of forgetfulness it is not affected, whether it's by the immersion or the natural way.
Great, thank you. And then Kayla wants to know, how does the ego adjust to the walk-in? If it becomes, or as it becomes aware, is there conflict sometimes?
There could be maybe a sensation like there is some sort of a strange conflict, especially when you go to the old places. Like in my case, when I go to travel to Poland, I do feel a certain conflict within me, kind of like there's just two of me's looking at that scene at the same time. They are sort of fused on some level, but on the other level, they are not. So this creates like an internal conflict, but it's not a conflict of ideas or like one thinks this and the other thinks that. No, it's very fused. That's why you chose that avatar, because there was a match. There was a match in values, in your essence, your frequency, your DNA then was fused, was adjusted. So I think there's a lot of adjustment, but I'm also thinking about that abrupt change of ideas. Yeah, they happen, but in that moment you are okay with that change. So I don't think you are sensing a lot of conflict from leaving the old ideas behind. Maybe in the very beginning. I'm not sure, because I never had that experience. You see, I don't have any memory of walking into this body. It was very gradual. So I don't know.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Olga would like to know if a walk-in could be a less evolved version of itself.
Usually they told us it's the reverse. It's the more advanced version of yourself. You come in at a specific time in your adult life because you are already, you don't want to go through that period of growing up and all that. You have a specific task to do, something to work through. And if you have a specific task to do when you're walking in, it's because you have certain evolved and transcended ideas within yourself that you learn from the higher realms. You want to implement them. So like logically, that means you are a more advanced version of yourself. However, again, it's like putting things in hierarchical way. I would just say it's the same person in a different point of the spiritual path. More advanced or less advanced, that would be like relative. But generally speaking, it's the more advanced one that comes in and walks in.
Right. And do you remember any of your life in the Pleiades before you came here?
I do not. That's the thing. I'm telling you that I have zero memories. I only have one specific memory of waking up. And that also that makes sense, because they told me that I was actually woken up once from my immersion. I don't know the details, but they told me they woke me up and they reset me. I don't know the circumstances. They don't want to tell me more. I don't know. It's vague. But I have a memory of actually being on a small ship in the orbit of the Earth, small capsule, like a small fighter jet or something. And with a few people around me, I was looking at Earth and they were asking me, "Are you sure you want to go back?" And I said, yes. I looked at Earth and I felt, that's what I remember. I felt so much compassion. Like, it's just amazing. I felt compassion towards the humanity, and I didn't want to leave it behind. Like, I just wanted to be there among them, helping. Like, just compassion. That's what I felt. Like, compassion. That's what I remember, the feeling, the emotion. And I looked at them and my teammates and I said, yes, I would need to go back. That's the memory I have. And then they told me that I was reset once, that they, for some reason, I don't know exactly circumstances, they woke me up from the pod and I was reset. I don't fully understand it, but that's the only memory I have, nothing else.
Great, thank you. In the book that I wrote, Walk-ins, The Cosmology of the Soul, Emma Louise, who actually is the person who initially told me about you, shares her story where she remembers coming in from a golden pod and she hovered over the body and then, emerged. with the body or merged with the body.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then this afternoon, Vivian Chevet also is currently in a pod, and she has projected herself from Arcturus.
Wow. This actually reminds me that actually it wasn't the memory that I had, but I've always sensed, like in the movie Matrix, the first one, that I am actually somewhere else. That my original body, when I watched that movie, I'm like, this is me. Like my original body is somewhere else, and I am projecting from somewhere else where my authentic self is into this, and I'm like interacting through this reality, through this avatar, and but my real self, I felt, was sitting somewhere in a chair, with cables, like in that movie Matrix. But that was before I knew that I was in the immersion. So these are like, scraps of feelings, and it's not even memory. It's like just feelings that I have that indicated to me that I was the immersed person. Also, they told us that when the immersed person, the reality feels a bit more false. Like it seems from what the immersed people, when they go back, report, is that the natural walkings, everything feels more real, and the immersed person is like a little bit not so real, like a bit more false. But that is very, very general. It's very difficult to distinguish if you are walking naturally or if you are walking through the technology.
And then we have one other question, and said, is Gosha a walk-in of SWARUU?
Oh, SWARUU? No, I am a walking of another person. I am of another person. No, not SWARUU, not like that. SWARUU is not in the immersion.
Okay. And let's see. Olga says, thank you very much. My question was more about SWARUU. I suspect that is what happened when my baby daughter died and later came back, but she was never again the same child. She is a very troubled soul now.
Okay, I don't see that question. Is it in the questions? No, it's not.
No, it is. It's in the regular questions.
It's in the normal.
It's one, two. It's the third one from the bottom.
Oh yeah, I see. The crawling. Yeah, the question. I don't know what age it has to be to categorize for crawling, but I guess that's at birth, when they come in. When my baby daughter died, and later came back, was never again the same child. I don't know if the crawling would refer to walking into the child, or that would be just a normal walking. Well, yeah, I don't know. I will have to know more details about this to comment further on this case. But yeah, all kinds of variables of these walkings and soul swapping happen. It's a very difficult subject even for them to fully understand. They told us, because it's very difficult to study. They have certain ways to study it, but a lot of it is done through the other side, through the agreements on the other side, metaphysically, through the etheric side. So it's very difficult to judge every single case and put a label what's happening there, because even for them, like I said, it's very difficult to study, and they don't know everything about the phenomenon of walkings themselves.
Right. Do they happen to have, or any way to gauge, what percentage of the population on the planet are walk-ins? Or maybe you could ask them next time if they're studying that.
Yeah, basically, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to scan my memory fast if I ever talked to them about that. I know that the amount of real people versus unreal people is very low. Like in the very beginning, they told us that 1 in every 5 people is actually real, more or less, of course.
Now, do you want to define real versus unreal?
Yeah, real versus unreal. But then in the sea of real people, there would be walkings and then not walkings, so-called ARIENs who are here for a very long time. And that statistics, I don't have on that at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And so when you talk about real versus unreal, the unreal people would be like the backdrop people. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. It's the same thing. Matrix person, backdrop people, NPC player, unreal person. It's all the same. Yes.
And do you want to share your concept of their purpose on this planet?
Of the unreal people?
Uh-huh.
Maintain the matrix, maintain the real people trapped within the matrix ideas. They are there to sustain and make the matrix and make it tough for us, the real people, the starseeds, the walkings, to see through the manipulations and to stand to the lies and confront the lies, because they will be there defending the system. So that's in a nutshell.
Well, I'm glad to know that we're all here, boots on the ground, serving the real people.
That's right. That's what we are here for. Yeah. And I believe that in the end, we are going to move the balance, and we are moving the balance in the positive direction.
Beautiful. So in our last few minutes, do you have any final comments that you would like to leave with people?
Yeah, I really don't like when people ask me that, because I don't know what to. Yes, I would just only say, if you feel you are walking, well, kind of embrace that and come out. Don't be afraid to come out, because you did that for a reason. You were confident in your ability and your strength to confront this life on Earth. So just go with it, embrace it. It doesn't mean that you are rejecting the past. That's important. They told me once, Gosha, don't reject Gosha, integrate her. This, in the end, enhances your soul and enriches you, because you are integrating more concepts into yourself from other souls, who in the end are you anyway. Like we all talked about, we are all one anyway. We are always growing our soul and expanding. So do not feel like you have to be in conflict or reject that past or that person that left behind. Integrate the memories, integrate the love towards the people that you used to love. They are still part of you in a way. You are part of that person. So integrate that and embrace the new, and go out there and be brave to be yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, for someone who doesn't like to answer that question, you did a great job answering the question.
Because I prepared that thought already, because I knew you were going to ask me. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to just tell the people to go out there and be themselves. Yeah.
That's great. And could you one more time share your website and your YouTube channel?
Yes, if you go to the bottom of the screen, I put it there for people. So it's Cosmic Agency on YouTube. The website is swaruu.org. And SWARUU Oficial, that's Mari SWARUU, extraterrestrial 15-year-old person, daily publishing videos on her channel in English and Spanish. So that's all from me for today. Thank you very much, everybody who has been watching and assisting and helping. Thank you very much, Sheila, for this opportunity and for making this happen, this whole event.
Thank you so much, Gosha. I really